welcome back, viewers at home. Good to have you with us. Now we are, I hope and I pray that you have your pen and paper ready because we're about to, turn into some motivation on overcoming negativity and cultivating a positive outlook. And I believe that Jabu Zwane will definitely be spilling some tips and tricks on how we can go about that in a very smooth and possible way. Jabu Zwane, good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. Much appreciated.
If you can kindly share with us on how we can go about, getting rid of those negative thoughts that keep anchoring us and really welcome those positive outlooks that can really take us from, strength to strength.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's get into it. Well, we know that we currently are living in a world that is full of bad news. Like bad news spread so much faster than positive news. And it doesn't help that actually there are also so many terrible things that are happening in the world. It's not just terrible things happening in South Africa, but a lot of terrible things are happening throughout the globe. Every scroll that one looks at, especially on your device and on television, we're hearing about conflict, global conflict, about corruption, about all sorts of different assaults on children, on elderly people, on the vulnerable, and pretty much anybody these days is not. Everybody is not safe, and I'd imagine that can be quite. It can be quite petrifying. Can create a lot of anxiety in us. And especially, I mean, I just heard, a couple of days ago, of course, that electricity in South Africa is going to be going up. And notwithstanding that, already we're struggling from all the rising food prices. As I was doing this research and preparing for tonight, I read somewhere that the current average food price inflation is about 20%. 20% of food inflation. And we all know that we have not been receiving salary increases or incomes of 20% annually. But I don't want to really dwell too much in the negativity because the idea for tonight is for us to learn how to rise above all the negative things. Let's think about this for a second. What you feed your mind becomes your focus. And if all you consume is fear, all that's going to come out at the end of the day is going to be fear. If all that you're consuming makes your mind dark, creates that dark cloud over your mind, then it's going to be very difficult for you to have a positive outlook on the future. So it's very important for you to mind, first of all, what your mental diet is. So, what is your mental diet? Think about it. You would not eat expired food, you would not eat poison, you would not eat food that is not very well done. And yet, unfortunately, so many of us don't realize that our minds are exactly the same. We take in a lot of negativity. We sometimes listen to half truths, half baked ideas, biased ideas that don't help us with anxiety and, in fact, make us even more anxious. And we don't actually mind even the source. We don't verify from whom are we receiving this mental diet from, this mental food from. You know, So think about this for a second. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, food inflation still outpaces general inflation, fueling global anxiety. I was just sharing even last night on a conversation I was having online that if we are currently looking at the fuel prices, the fact that they've been down for so long, and part of what triggered and what pushed down the prices was all the global conflict. And if it happens that the globe stabilizes again, the likelihood is that they're going to go up again. So it is important for us to be aware of what's going to happen in the future so that we can then be able to prepare ourselves for it. So set times to check news that are relevant. Finances are currently an issue. So pay attention to what is happening in terms of inflation, what's happening in terms of fuel, what's happening in terms of energy, like electricity, for example, and gas. Like gas prices have just gone up by another 7%. And the reason why you do this because you want to empower yourself so that in your budgeting you are able to plan accordingly, and in your consumption and in usage of some of these important necessities, that you don't overuse and you don't waste things. Now, the second thing that we need to do is that we need to cultivate a little bit of gratitude. Gratitude does not change the facts, it does not change the circumstances, but it can change how you experience your situation and also what you focus on. The moment that we become grateful, psychologists are telling us that this helps us. It almost gives us that positive energy, that dopamine that we need, versus being cynical, being negative, and focusing on all the terrible things that are happening. It is not to say that you must not ignore, uh, you know, stressful information or stressful data, but that you need to focus on positive so that you can be able to generate the positive motivational energy to tackle those situations that you're facing. It's far better to tackle challenges from a positive perspective than it is from a negative perspective. And one of the things that I normally encourage people to do is that, every week, maybe daily even, but every week at least, write 3 to 5 things that you are grateful for. Write 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. When you have wins, write down those wins. And also, for example, write down even people that you are currently that are appreciative for, that you're grateful for. Because one of the worst things that can happen sometimes, especially in such a negative period, is that we can tend to not focus on the people that are really positive in our lives because we are weighted by all the negative things that are happening. As a result, our conversations are just full of all the terrible things that are happening, and unfortunately, we forget to be grateful for each other, be compassionate towards each other, be kind towards each other. Gratitude is almost that positive psychological reminder for us to be kind, to be compassionate, and to appreciate one another. So, even though this is a tough season, gratitude helps us to just focus ourselves on how do we tackle each day at a time. When gratitude becomes your lens, you stop focusing on what's missing and you see what is meaningful. The third thing is that rebuild your tribe. Like, honestly, it's important to remember that you are never meant to tackle this life by yourself. I did a video the other day that really broke my heart because I was speaking about how important it is, especially for men, to ask for help. And the reason why I did the video is because I just received terrible news about a relative, a young relative man that is just taking his own life. And I was just reflecting on how, in front of everyone, he held this very positive facade and never shared with anybody in terms of what he was struggling with. Only for us to wake up the next day and to hear the news that he's taking his own life. And I was just saying how important it is for us to ask for help, to have the courage to ask for help, not to see help as a reflection of our weakness, but actually rather of the reality of our humanity. Not to worry too much about whether people can resonate with what we're going through, but remembering that sometimes when we're sharing whatever we're going through with people, it can help us to process the pain, the tensions that we're feeling, and sometimes we can even start to find solutions to our problems as we're talking to people, or at least they may know people that know others who can be able to help us. And so it's important for us to share that. And so when we share what we're going through with the people who are close to us, then it creates that closeness, it creates the psychological safety. The World Health Organization warns us that loneliness are currently at an increase, that almost 29% of the people in the world, in many countries, are experiencing high amounts of loneliness. There's a culture of disconnect, even though we are so digitally connected. But in person, I'm finding more and more that there's a very anti-social, anti-relationship, anti-love atmosphere, which makes people very fearful of connecting with each other, suspicious of one another, unopen to understanding and unopen to compassion. But when you place yourself with people, you open yourself up, you create that permission for them also to open up, and that also helps in return, gives you that psychological safety. So, some of the ways you can do that is that listen, text your friends every now and then and check on them and find out how they're doing. Join a local church, join a local association, join some kind of a local activity, soup kitchen where there's positivity happening so that you can be able to leverage some of that for yourself. Start some kind of monthly hangout. Perhaps you start looking around for events around your area that are motivational, that are into personal development, and that are into all things good that can help you to rise above the negativity. All right, remember, there's a very powerful verse that I love in the Bible that says that the two are better than one, and if either falls, one can lift another up. And that's in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9. You are you are far better positioned to handle negativity when you've got people who support and care and love you, care for you and love you. Your healing might be hidden in someone else's voice. Don't silence your need for connection. Open your heart up for connection. Number 4, move your body, quiet your mind. And I must say, this has been something I struggled with quite a bit, but I'm glad that I've started doing it again. Move your body. Go for walks. You know, have one of those on your cell phone. Have one of those step checker, and have some goals, and start walking around a little bit, because walking helps a lot as far as um, emotional regulation, blood regulation, and even reducing your stress. Your body remembers what your mind tries to forget. Remember that. Movement is not just fitness, it is also freedom. So when you engage your body with activity, it kind of moves your attention away from whatever traumas and whatever difficulties you may be experiencing in your body, but actually gives you newer experiences. Remember that your stress is stored in your body. Anxiety shows up in your tight shoulders, in your shallow breathing, in your racing heart. And that's why it's important, even if it's only 20 minutes, according to research, only 20 minutes is good to start to really get that blood flowing. All right. And do this, for example, and I like to do this as well. Either walk with some kind of positive podcast audio that you're listening to, or really good music that is positive that you're listening to, or perhaps intentionally be meditative on a particular thought that helps you to grow. Sometimes your breakthrough is not in a sermon, it's not in motivation, but it is actually in your own deep reflections by yourself. So it's important to then do that. And the last point I want to share with you this evening is turn your worry into some purposeful action. Remember, worry is also a mental labor. Like you're focusing your mind on this particular thing that's worrying you, and you're putting that intellectual energy and into this thing that is worrying you. But the moment that you repurpose that into, for example, solutions, or into things that you have control over, then it can energy shifts from being oppressed, being grieved, being sorrowful, to productivity, which then in turn will produce that dopamine effect, which then in turn can help you to have that positive experience. Remember, the worry drains you, but action can sustain you. If you can't control the world that is outside, the very least you can do is control the world that is inside. You've got a far better chance of managing and regulating what is inside of you than you are able to manage or control what is outside of you. When you're feeling overwhelmed, do something that brings light. Do something that brings light. For example, cook for someone in need. Cook for somebody that you care about. Make that special meal for your children. Make that special meal for yourself. Volunteer and be part of positive action in the community. Start a prayer group. Start a motivational group. Start some kind of support group for people, for example, whatever it is that you're going through. Maybe you've just gone through some kind of an illness. Join some groups. Maybe you've had some rare disease that you're currently dealing with. Host some kind of conversation, round table or circle. I like to do that, especially when I get together with my friends, is to talk about life, and talk all things positive, and ask questions and hear from others and how others are doing. You don't have to fix everything. Just don't do nothing. Small acts can restore a lot of hope. So it's not for you to change your world all at once, but it's for you to be very intentional in ensuring that You don't engage in anything that takes away your peace, in anything that brings about confusion that will spiral out of control, in anything that exaggerates the things that you're worried about, in anything that sort of also exaggerates your sense of helplessness, losing control, but to really focus your mind on anything that can help you to get that peace, become grateful, have that connection, have that movement. There's another very powerful verse in the Bible that I like a lot that says, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of great report, whatsoever things are good, think on these things, and to be anxious for nothing, but with all prayer and meditation and supplication to let your requests be known unto the Almighty. Because, in this world, it's kind of very difficult to just think that we are going to tackle the world by ourselves. The attitude of me against the world is not a very helpful attitude. It does not get us where we need to go. And that is basically what my encouragement is to you this evening, is to remember that your mind is like a garden. Whatever it is that you plant in your mind is what ultimately is going to grow. And so if you're planting seeds that are full of poison, at the end of the day, the fruits that come out are going to be full of poison. And at the same time, because your mind is like a garden, it's important to be mindful of what you germinate into how you germinate your mind. And that basically means that you got to be very careful in terms of then the environment that you put yourself in. Sometimes we helplessly put ourselves in very negative environments, and these negative environments end up making us feel far more powerless, like we've lost more control. And the moment that you spiral and you start thinking that you are losing control, you start to become desperate. And in desperation, you can make those terrible decisions that actually worsen your situation rather than making it better. When you feel like you've lost control, you don't even see the need to plan. You don't need this. They see the need to be careful and to be cautious. You can find yourself completely overspending. So, with all of that being said, I want you to think about what I've just said. Create those connections, build those tribes, be grateful, mind what's going on into your mind, but above all, focus on everything that you have control over and let go of whatever you don't have control over. My name is Jabu Zwane. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you so much, Jabu Zwane, for that insightful and quite, a filling insight on how we can really cultivate that positive mind. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Good evening.
Viewers at home, that was Jabu Zwane who was sharing in on how you can go about, cultivating that positive outlook using gratitude, revisiting the tribes and really doing something meaningful. And I'm loving our following up conversation with my guests tonight who are going to talk to us on how they're spending 18th July, which is Mandela Day. And I think this is a start for you to really do something that is just beyond self. And I think that is something that gives purpose to saying, and I think it also ignites that, gratitude aspect about you. Because if you're out here serving community, you get to see how much you have and how much people don't have. And this allows you to, be better, do better, and ultimately, have that positive energy filling us all day through. But for now, let's head over to an ad break. We'll see you just after this.